You're listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
I used to think there was righteous justice, that whatever I did, it served humanity. There is only one way left to aid mankind, and it does not include our survival.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Cult of Lore. I'm Eric.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Jerry.
And today we are talking about Corvus Corax, a German band known for playing neo-medieval music using authentic instruments. Right? No? Different Corvus. Right. Warhammer. Corvus Corax. Primarch of the Imperium. That's right.
This is my fault. I said, who wanted to open the episode? And Eric goes, I will. He. I was like, oh, fuck. And then off we go.
When I searched Corvus Corax, that is what came up.
Yeah.
Slightly before 40K Corvus Corax.
It was really hard to find something on Spotify to every now and again, I'll try to listen on Spotify about Primarchs to study up. And it was all this band.
Oh.
I was like, son of a bitch. So y'all are welcome. Corvus is a Primarch of the Imperium, and he was starting to grow on me here recently when we were talking about Lord
the Primarch of the 19th Legion, the Raven Guard.
The Raven Guard.
He's also known as the Deliverer and the Raven Lord.
Yes, as well as the Liberator.
The Liberator is another one.
Is a chooser of the slain and the shadowed Lord.
Yes.
Oh, shadowed, not shadow.
AKA Harriet Tubman.
I don't get it.
Oh, well, we'll get into it.
All right. Oh, sweet. Cool. All right.
Oh, boy.
This is going to be one of those episodes. So where do we start with Corvus?
So let's do with a little basic traits of Corvus and the Raven Guard, and then we'll dive into a little bit of what we think, and we'll kind of tackle his story as we go along. So Corvus is a Primarch, which means he's, between 8 and 12 foot tall.
Yeah.
They don't come in they don't really give a whole lot of kind of indication of how tall Primarchs are. You kind of have to go off of what they say about each other.
Yeah, kind of inferring and stuff like that.
Vulcan
Context
being
clues.
the biggest, we know that.
Yeah.
Alfarius being the smallest, we know that. So we have the two ends, and then the rest of them are kind of subjective based on the descriptions of the others. Corvus is, I believe he's actually one of the smaller of the Primarchs.
I could see that. That would kind of make sense.
Shares a lot of traits in common with Conrad Kurz. Black hair, black eyes, very pale. Likes bladed weapons.
Yeah, as well as an affinity for
the dark.
Yeah, the darkness, and an obsession with the concept of justice.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And a large section of Corvus's character is kind of him obsessing over this comparison between the Raven Guard and the Night Lords.
Yeah.
He does not like it.
No, I think it does haunt him.
Oh, stop it. Ow.
My nose.
But anyway, I'm going to have an unpopular. I'm not real thrilled with Corvus.
Right.
I actually think he's a less honest version of Conrad.
Less honest.
Ooh,
wow. Okay. I'm intrigued by that because you actually did read which book did
So I read Corvus Corax. So I read Corax, Lord of Shadows, and I'm halfway through Deliverance Lost.
Okay. Nice. And so you got a better feel for his personality than what I ended up getting, because I was also supposed to read a Corvus book, and I let life get the better of me.
Well, I mean, there's been this between Cult's Christmas and everything else, and a lot of personal stuff goes on, of course, this time of year, so it's fine.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So he shares a lot of traits in common with Conrad Kurz, but my problem, and it definitely came from the Shadowed Lord book, was Conrad knows what he's about. Now, it is true that Conrad lies to himself. Like, he's like, oh, I didn't have a choice, right? Like, that's his big deceit. That's where he's lying to himself, is that he didn't have a choice. But Conrad is perfectly aware that his motivations and why he does things, and kind of the way he goes, and kind of the why his own mental process for why he tortures people, and he doesn't have a whole lot of personal motivation, actually.
Yeah.
To him, it's a job that he uses to justify his bad inclinations. Corvus is the kind of the opposite of that. Corvus is all personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he makes these decisions that are very Conrad-like, but he's kind of hypocritical about what he tells himself about it.
Yeah, he too kind of lies to himself, huh?
He does in a different bend.
Yeah.
Whereas Conrad is kind of like, oh, I don't have a choice in this thing. Corvus is like, oh, I have a choice, and I'm making the better choice because I'm serving this higher principle.
Yeah. Yeah, because I could definitely see how Kurz could come away thinking that he doesn't have a choice. You know what I mean? Some might not see it fair to say that he's lying to himself, but more that he's kind of just deceived by his own. I don't really think that. But
the problem is people that you have to keep in mind is that Conrad had foresight, and he saw the future, but he only saw one future, which was the one that ended up happening.
Right.
So as far as he was concerned, he was not only seeing the future, but he was seeing the only way. He didn't see it like the way Sanguinius saw it, which was like this spread out road where there's multiple twists and turns, and it branches off into all these different things.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily his fault.
No, he was born with that.
Yeah.
He was born with that, and he didn't have anybody to raise him to tell him any different.
Right.
Corvus lies to himself, but he doesn't have any supernatural abilities that he misinterprets.
Right.
For him, he has this deep-seated rage in him that he needs satisfied, and he needs it satisfied at all costs, any cost, and he's perfectly willing to wrap it, and often does wrap it in this veneer of pursuing justice.
Yeah.
When it's like, well, you're claiming that this is justice, and you're going out of your way to say that it's not vengeance because you don't like being compared to the Night Lords. But you explain. I would love to ask him how he thinks that this is not vengeance.
And I almost how self-aware is he? Like, I know he at least has run into like feeling like he's towing that line, right? But like, okay, I have to be careful to make sure that this isn't about vengeance. It's kind of the impression I was getting a little bit.
Right, but that
maybe like later on he gets
maybe
more vengeful.
Yeah.
When he's like going into the
the incident that sparks this is before the Horus Heresy happens. This is during the Great Crusade.
Oh, okay.
And he wraps it up nice and neat for everybody that it's about justice. But like to me, what this says about him, and we'll cover his origin first to kind of, we'll cover the incident, then we'll explain the origin, kind of explain. To me, he's got this deep-seated hatred for these individuals that are in his past, that even though he's punished, he needs a new target that fits that bill. Mm. And when he finds somebody that he can kind of superimpose these people on, he'll go after them, and he can then drop all this I care about the innocent people crap.
Right.
Which is the line he actually toes because he wants to be a good person. But when he follows this line, man, he drops all that nonsense and pursues what's really important to him, which is making the perceived bad person, although they are bad people, but making them pay. But he wraps it up as justice. It's like, well, justice is not quite making somebody pay.
Right. Yeah.
So in this incident I'm talking about, they are liberating a system from these group of techno tyrants, basically.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it gets kind of down to where this one tyrant is keeping all the other ones from siding with Corvus because he's kind of the vocal one that's keeping them from giving up. And so Corvus decides just to attack his kingdom directly. He's also like the biggest, most military, so that's why everybody's kind of listening to him. So like,
Yeah.
it's like, if we take this guy out, the rest of them will just give up. He lays siege to his capital city, and to escape, this guy releases a viral bomb on his own citizens that turns them all into basically zombies.
Oh.
So instead of having just the military to deal with, the Raven Guard are now fighting the entire citizenry of this basically hive planet.
Wow.
But in turn, like, all these innocent people, they
Have
lose
been-
their will and die.
Oh.
So Corvus tracks this guy as he takes off planet, and it kind of comes down to where they're like, listen, you can either go after this guy and it'll be up to the Astro Militarum by itself to make the rest of these plans comply, which is going to take much longer and cost countless lives on both sides. Or you guys can stay, you'll lose him, but the war will be ended much faster. The planets will be claimed with a lot less lives lost, and it'll be over.
Oh.
And Corvus doesn't even fucking blink. He's like after that guy. And like his men are like, they're like, we don't think we should do. And he's like, we're about justice. Go get him. They're like, but all the lives that'll be lost. He's like, nope. You guys can go do this plan that's going to cost millions of lives. Go do it. And what pissed me off even worse about that scene was that right before they figured out what this guy was doing, Corvus had chastised all of the Astro Militarum officers for this plan they came up with, because he's like, that'll cost so many innocent lives that you don't care about. But the exact second, the real prize that he wanted left planet, he's like, okay, do your plan. I'm leaving.
So he's not practicing what he preaches.
No, not at all. And then he's perfectly willing to tear down people for a plan that he's willing to adopt 5 seconds later when he doesn't have to.
Yeah. Or he clearly didn't agree with the plan, but then stopped caring when like you said, his real target took off. He's like, okay, now you guys do whatever you want. I don't care about the lives, apparently. That's
Right.
kind of what I'm gathering from that. Yeah.
So why do I think that it's all about this group that kind of he's obsessed with, in my opinion? It's because of where he landed.
Yep.
And the planet he landed on, it ended up being called Deliverance. But it was originally called
I had that too.
Lycaeus.
Lycaeus.
There it is.
That's the moon, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the moon. And it was ruled by this tyrannical guild. Call it similarities, right? Like, you're already starting to see the connections here. It was
Yeah.
ran by this tyrannical guild called the Kalavar. I believe that's how you pronounce that. Klavah.
That would be my guess.
Kaiavar.
Or is that an I? Yep, I. Kaivar.
Kaivar.
But anyway, he lands there, and it's a system that's built on slavery.
Yeah. Like the moon is like a penal colony kind of for the planet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they rule as slaves for this ruling.
And, penal colony isn't it, so it's basically a little prison world, but it's people that are born there.
Yeah,
People that are.
It's like, if you can imagine a prison that's a city that has men, women, like that prison would have to have basically its own ecosystem.
Like generations of imprisoned people.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
So imagine that as a planet.
Yeah.
And so you have.
And so whether you're like actually guilty of a crime or not, if you're there, you're there.
Right. If
Yeah.
you're there because your family was convicted, well, then that's just the breaks, kid.
Tough luck.
Born a slave.
And that's
And-
what they are is slaves at that point.
And so Corvus lands there. He lands in a glacier, actually, crashes through a
Yeah.
glacier.
Yeah.
And he's found by the slave workers there, who instantly recognize that this is not a normal baby,
Yeah.
as one does with Primarchs.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? They
Yeah.
always understand that like something's very different about this being
This
here.
baby has a lot of charisma.
Well, I mean, not just that, but you have
Huge.
you have Perturabo, which we haven't covered yet, but
No.
but just a little glimpse. Perturabo, they found him as a baby clinging to the side of a sheer rock cliff.
Ooh.
And then you have Sanguinius, who as a baby killed a bunch of like raiders, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
And-
And Lehman Russ, who killed a bunch of people for killing his wolf family
right. And these are,
as a baby.
there's nothing that indicates in the books that these are babies of abnormal size.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Because they'll say, like, by the time he was 3, he was the size of a man. So they don't say like he's big, like, and none of their observations, it's the actions that make people realize that these babies are different.
Yeah.
So there's nothing different about their appearance, except for sanguinius who have fucking wings, of course.
And they just grow really fast.
They just grow really fast.
Yeah, they do.
So like when you're hearing baby Primarchs do all this crazy shit, it still looks just like a normal toddler.
The size of a baby doing these incredible feats.
I would love to see just that put to like film, essentially, like just a series of these babies enacting their feats.
Yes.
That would be so fun.
Which just makes Conrad's even funnier because, you know, you have where he crashes into Nostromo and he comes crawling out from its molten core. And like the people of Nostromo thought it was a demon because they had this demon toddler just crawling out covered in molten lava.
Nope.
And even Corax was found in a place where it's like nobody should be here.
Yeah,
and
he's
alive.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like in a mine, right? Like
I think it was. Yeah, they were.
It was a
mining
mine
the
out of
ice,
a
weren't they?
it was a glacier, but it was a mine tunnel.
Yeah, that they found him in, and
they quickly realized that this baby was special, so they hid the fuck out of him.
yeah,
They played a real game of keep away.
yeah, and then eventually, I think he discovered one of his key kind of powers at one point.
Right. He was sneaking around. He discovered very quickly, obviously, that he was above everybody else as far as physicality and intelligence and stuff. The slave people, they taught him philosophy. They taught him about justice and about probably what could be considered a slightly slanted point of view. Understandable, but slanted.
Yeah.
But he was sneaking from one area to the other when he basically got caught by 2 guards, and through kind of reflex, he willed them not to see him.
Yeah. Just like please don't see me. And they didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah. So he discovered and then kept using the fact that he could now kind of render himself essentially invisible.
Except for he could be recorded. So it did not fool machinery.
Yeah, the artificial stuff could still detect him.
It was a perception, like
right.
proximity based.
However, if somebody was looking through the screen, they wouldn't see him.
Oh. So it wasn't proximity based.
It wasn't.
Interesting.
It was based on the will of the person observing that he could manipulate. But if it was like a mechanical motion sensor or something, it would detect him. Or if it was like a servitor type, I don't think they had servitors, but like their equivalent.
Right. Yeah.
It would detect him.
Gotcha.
Things like that.
And that kind of, that reminds me of a scene I read in the Night Haunter when the Conrad and the Night Lords had an encounter with Corax.
Yep.
And it was really cool because it was kind of playing out a little bit like a horror movie where it's like, you know, they're like, they are right on top of us. They are here. Our sensors are going off like crazy, and they're looking around and there isn't anybody in the room.
Right.
At all.
It's like that scene from Aliens.
Yeah.
Where he's like, that can't be right, man. They'd be inside the room.
Yeah.
It's
right on top of us.
That might be why it reminded me of a horror movie, because it really was like that scene.
And it was free.
Cool.
What was interesting was it didn't freak Conrad out. It actually just kind of pissed him off.
Yeah.
But it freaked out the Night Lords.
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
Sevatar he didn't show it, and he would never admit it, but it freaked him out.
Yeah.
He didn't like it at all. They're used to being the thing that goes bump in the night.
Yeah, right. And then they ran into another bumper.
A bigger bumper.
A bigger bumper.
There's always a bigger bumper. But so he uses this ability to basically go where he wants, and he starts a rebellion, gathering supplies, teaching people how to fight, because, you know, like all Primarchs, he has this this natural instinct for tactics and combat and things like all that genetic stuff that's pre-programmed into being a Primarch.
Yeah.
Along with all the extra organs and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So he leads a rebellion, and he uses some questionable tactics.
He does end up doing so, doesn't he?
Yeah. And this kind of starts not Conrad. This kind of starts Corvus's the ends justify the means kind of argument that he has with himself a lot of the time.
Oh yeah.
He gets to where he takes over the moon, and I believe it comes down to where he issues his statements to the planet, letting them know that the moon is now free. And to prevent a larger war, he attacks them with nukes.
Yep.
Nukes cities of civilians and innocent people.
Yeah. He kills thousands of Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. Wow.
Probably millions.
Oh, wow. Well, I thought his argument was he killed thousands to save millions, but maybe it was millions to save
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
I have a general rule that whenever I'm reading a book where the Primarch is the voice of their own actions, I treat it with a high amount of skepticism because every single one of these fuckers justifies the shit out of everything to themselves without
I
hesitation.
think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's
So,
fair. It's a slanted perspective whenever you get it. Yeah.
So I do the same thing anytime we have a Primarch that's like, oh, I can beat this Primarch in a fight. I can beat this brother, that brother. I always take that stuff as unreliable.
Yeah, which is fair. There's unreliable narrators all the time.
Especially
in
over 40K.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where half the fun is, really. You know, if things were just stated as blatant, omniscient fact all of the time, their reading would be much less fun.
Allows you to see through the perspective of like every story that's being told.
Yeah.
And then even if the city contained hundreds of thousands, then the ripple effect of dropping those nukes will end up killing millions.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You're talking about radiation. You're talking about supplies.
Economic downfall.
Yeah, you're talking about supplies that are interrupted. You're talking about.
Yeah.
But he says he does it all in the name of freedom and once again, justice.
Yep. And is this before or after he met with the Emperor?
I believe that this was after he met the Emperor.
That's right. And I don't think this is fair to Mortarion. The Emperor came to him and then ended up letting him finish his business on the planet. But that's not what he did for Mortarion when he showed up there.
Right, but that's perfectly in line with what he did for Angron, because the difference here is that Corvus could win. Mortarion wouldn't have survived going up that mountain. Angron would not have survived that final battle at the end.
Right, okay.
Now, where I think the Emperor fucks up is instead, what you could do is help them.
Yeah.
Give Mortarion the technology to go up that mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Help Angron with your Custodes to fight that battle and win.
Yeah, he could.
That's true.
You could.
Yeah. Be a little more helpful, Pa. I'm sorry, Lord Emperor.
It was so funny. He goes, Pa, and I looked at Harry. I was like, whoa.
Basically clutched his pearls. I felt like blasphemy. I'm so sorry. Excuse me.
So also by the time this is dropped, Happy New Year, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Happy New Year and holidays and all that.
Yes.
Right. Because Christmas has already happened.
It has.
Of course. Yes.
We're not.
So here we are.
We're not trying to get ahead of this train.
Fighting tooth and nail.
We escaped the Krampus.
Jerry escaped. There was an oncoming train. We were pushing little old ladies, kindergartners, toddlers. Everybody tried to get ahead of this fucking We need time off. Which means we need to get on our shit.
Yeah. So Happy New Year.
But Happy New Year, everybody.
First episode of Call to Lore in 2023. There you have it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did it. Cool.
But anyway, we linked out to a Christmas song that was the Grandpa Nurgle. Go give those guys a listen and a like and a thumbs up. It was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. It sounds awesome.
And me and Eric were listening to it, and he goes, oh my, this is very heretical. I was like, it is, but it's good stuff. So you can heresy a little bit from time to time, but
every now and
calling
again.
the Emperor Pa.
A little too irreverent, huh? Yeah.
Oh,
boy.
Listen, we ain't Primarchs.
I don't think you would appreciate Grandpa either. Man, I'm making...
That's the Astartes.
Pop.
That's the Astarte. Yeah, oh no, great Grandpa? I don't know.
Grandsire.
Get me off of this train. Get me out of here. I'm committing heresy
He's
right
now. He's not heresy. He's drowning here. But anyway, so Corvus does end up taking over, of course, and he joins the Great Crusade.
Yeah. And
so that's what leads into this incident that I described where he goes after the guy. And that's why I think to him, he had this initial imprint where this hatred for the Calavar people that he just grew to despise. And I think he uses this term oppressor, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just, as soon as he assigns that word to somebody, he needs them to pay, and it doesn't really matter what price.
Mm.
And so Conrad is willing to sacrifice and do everything to accomplish his goal, and he's honest about it.
Yeah.
Corvus, not so much. I find him to be more dishonest with himself. It also helps that Kurz is insane and
Corvus
Corvus is not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's a pretty good. Yeah. I was pretty surprised when Ben first came to me and said that he wasn't digging Corvus's personality so much.
And some of the Raven Guard, some of the Raven Guard are really cool.
Yeah.
Some of them are dicks though.
Yeah.
Just unnecessarily. Unnecessary.
Speaking of the Raven Guard, do you want to go into them a little bit? Because they're a little different from what you'd typically run into with the Astartes. Not, of course, we've been bringing up the Night Haunter and the Night Lords a lot, and they're a little more similar to them than others, but...
Sure.
Yeah.
So the Raven Guard are all about stealth.
Yes.
And camouflage.
And taking out like high priority targets.
Yes,
Right.
they don't
Behind
like
enemy
to.
lines.
They don't wage open war.
Yeah.
No, they'll, like you said, go behind enemy lines, commit as much just destabilizing destruction as they can.
Yeah. It's kind of cool because you can see where all of the Astarte legions are kind of like blends of each other. So the Night Lords are like if you were to take the Raven Guard and the Blood Angels and put them together, right? And then in turn, the Raven Guard are almost like if you were to take the Night Lords and the Alpha Legion and put them together.
That's neat.
And they kind of do that over and over again. You could do like the Death Guard. They're the Iron Warriors mixed with the Salamanders, right? So,
cool.
And so on and so forth.
I was going to say, I want you to do more, but darn it. All right.
Well, those are just from the hip. I would have, but
right.
Yeah, they do kind of blend into each other, which I always find is an interesting piece of writing because it shows the brilliance of the Emperor in that his plan allowed for any one legion to be good at enough things to kind of be on its own.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty neat. I'm going to be on the lookout for that from now on because I think that's really cool that there's kind of these overlaps like that.
Yeah, and also it helps you learn the legions because I think, man, learning the legions and the Primarchs is required if you're going to be in the 40K fandom.
Yeah,
like if you want to make it a home, you've got to know who the Primarchs are. You got to know which each legion is.
But I'll tell you, it's tough. There's a lot. So this is a good tool to help. It's kind of like, okay, these two things are kind of like this one. You know? Yeah.
It definitely helps with like a reference to reference all of it and kind of crisscross things because when something happens, now I sort of understand because I know a little bit more about this other group that did this thing, and then I'm like, oh, okay, that's why that interaction is that way. It helps.
Yeah, exactly. And so any tool to help get those things more familiar, because the more familiar you are with those, the easier you're going to be able to bounce to the other factions. Because the Imperium is, I think, obviously it's what we think where you have to start because it's the backbone for everything.
Right.
But do you have some other things about the Raven Guard?
No, not as much as I would like. Just more that I like the guerrilla warfare tactics to them.
Yeah. Let me see if I can.
They have like the Mark 6 armor.
There it is. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, good.
They have the Mark 6 power armor, which was designed specifically for them. It's stealth armor.
It's lighter.
It's lighter. It's it doesn't. So if you listen to any of the books and stuff, one of the kind of key telltale signs of the power armor, which is something I'd actually like to start incorporating into our quotes when we get there, is the telltale whine of power armor. It always kind of has this. Anytime any of the joints move or whatever, it's got this kind of wah. I imagine, it's got this.
Yeah,
the hydraulics.
You can hear the inner workings.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's not quite as clunky.
Right.
But yeah, it's always got this sound, and the Mark 6 doesn't have that.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. And it's funny, in Deliverance Lost, one of the characters you follow is an Alpha Legionnaire who has infiltrated the Raven Guard.
Oh.
He's the one that ends up fucking up the Raptor project. We'll get there.
Oh, yes. Okay, cool.
But he loves this armor. He's just like, oh, it makes no noise. And he's like, we need to get this for the Alpha Legion. He's like, this shit's great.
This is good shit.
I like this. They're also pretty big on like jetpacks and jumper packs.
Oh,
too,
yeah.
right?
They're all about flight.
Yep, definitely flight. Seems to be a lot of claws, which a lot of the bird oriented
talons
things have a lot of those claws or talons to them, usually lightning and electrical or
They've got a lot of long range sniper troops as well. Them
cool.
and the
sense.
Alpha Legion. The Alpha Legion's got one in particular whose name is Exodus. Maybe.
It's always maybe with the fucking Alpha Legion.
It might be one one really good sniper. It might be a few of them that are operating as. We'll get to them eventually. I'm not. My head.
I know.
Alpha Legion. Fuck.
We're putting that one off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Jesus.
I'm so like putting that one. I love the Alpha Legion. I do, but they hurt my head.
Yeah. But yeah, they do a lot of like demolition stuff too to
Sabotage.
Yeah, sabotage stuff, but they're not big on like heavily armored vehicles. Or really vehicles at all is the impression I'm getting. It's a lot of
No, they
like mobility and
yeah,
being
they
fast.
yeah.
they use a lot of bikes.
Oh, okay.
If they're
Okay,
going to use
gotcha.
vehicles, it's a lot of the jet bike stuff.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, they're a little less. The White Scars are much more vehicle. They're nuts for vehicles, but the Raven Guard will indulge in the jet bikes.
Get some speed.
But anyway, so Corvus joins the Great Crusade, and it's all going well and good until Isstvan V.
Yeah.
Isstvan V is where everything goes south.
Oh, I'm still salty about that.
Yeah, the drop site massacre. The Raven Guard, Iron Hands, and the Salamanders were going up against the Word Bearers, the Death Guard, and the Sons of Horus. And they were to be backed up by the Night Lords, the Alpha Legion, the Iron Warriors,
Well, and the
Word Bearers.
yeah.
So it was, who was it on the other side? It was the Emperor's Children. Emperor's Children, Death Guard, Sons of Horus.
Mhm.
And then, the Raven Guard, the Salamanders, and the Iron Hands were to be backed up by the Alpha Legion, the Night Lords, the Word Bearers,
Mhm.
and it just all went bad.
Yeah. Oh, I despise that scene when the Raven Guard got turned on by the Word Bearers. It was just, it's not fair. It was horrible. That, like, for me, is the moment where, like, the level of betrayal that the heresy was sank in.
Sank home.
Yeah, that one struck my heart.
Because they were like, oh, good, our allies have showed up.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, we need help. And then, radio silence.
Yeah, nothing. And then just they opened fire, started mowing them down. I was rooting for Corvus here.
Oh, of course. Listen, my
oh.
disagreements with him go all to the wayside during the Isstvan V stuff. That's
Yeah.
like, good God.
Because,
And anytime I picture that, I always imagine there's just a moment of pure silence right before the traitors start shooting, where
Yeah.
it's like they aim, and it's like that moment right when the loyalists are like, "Oh fuck," but it just is silent.
Oh, because they gave them no answer.
Nothing.
No chance to, like, throw down weapons.
Oh no!
Nothing.
Anybody that did try to surrender was just mowed down.
Yeah.
Not that I read any accounts of that.
Right. I wouldn't imagine that they would.
I don't
but-
know that I've ever read an account of an Astartes actually surrendering.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't expect there to be. And boy, thousands of them died, like, very quickly.
Tens of thousands. In
Like,
a matter of minutes.
and Corvus went flying in like a holy terror out of fucking hell.
I know.
Just ripping through them. God, I loved that.
So I will say this: while I may disagree with like some of his morals and the way he conducts himself, his fight scenes are phenomenal.
Yeah. It was really well done in the book. It was very well described.
He's
It
one
was
of the better
exciting.
like duelists of the Primarchs, right?
Yeah, he is supposed to be one of the better combatants. Yeah.
Yep.
And then he ended up in a fight with Lorgar. We talked about
We
this
talked
in the
about this.
Lorgar episode. Yeah.
Yep. He beats the shit out of him.
Rightfully so. And I'm still like, he's asking him why. And I'm like reading this thing. It's like, I haven't empathized with a traitor quite like I've empathized with Lorgar. And I'm still like, you answer him. You tell him why.
Yeah.
You bastard.
Yeah, but I love that scene. I think it's a good scene for all three of the characters.
It is.
It's
Yes.
a good
Yep.
one for the betrayed, which is Corvus, the betrayer, which is Logar. Because
Yeah.
Logar is, I think he's sympathetic.
I
feel
can
bad
see
for
how
him.
he got to where he did.
I do too.
I can. I really can.
And the reason why he was fighting so hard on Isstvan is because Corvus was killing so many of his men.
Yeah. Yeah. That is what drove him in a fight into actually fighting Corvus, because he never wanted to be a soldier or anything like that.
And he knew he was gonna. He knew he couldn't take him.
Yeah. But he was going to do it anyway. It was a very like self-sacrificing sort of thing. And I Boy,
He
I
was,
wish he had been succeeded.
He was powered up by the.
Oh, he was getting
He
more
was,
power up,
he
you're
was,
right.
but he
Yeah.
knew he couldn't beat him.
But he was still all but ripped in half by Corvus's
Had to be saved by
power claw.
Curse.
Yep.
Mhm.
And, now, and that's where Corvus fled, for lack of a better word.
Oh, he fled. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
'cause-
definitely he took off.
He kind of had.
He had no choice.
Yeah.
I think he
would have
later
died.
on regretted that and wished that he had like died there.
Yeah,
he did.
'cause
Yeah, he wished he had let Curse kill him.
Yeah. And I almost wonder because it came across to me that he felt that if he had stayed, sure, he would have died, but he would have also probably killed the other two, or at least
At least
stopped
one of
them.
them or something.
He would
Yeah.
have killed Logar
He
probably for
did-
sure.
That's true. He definitely would have. But I almost wonder if the kind of that fear of being like Conrad, or
So that's what he says.
yeah,
So when you read his account of it, that's what he says
is it okay?
is that it's when he looks into Conrad's eyes, he realizes that he was basically one step away from being what Conrad was, and that shock, that kind of realization, because that hatred he was throwing at Logar was being reflected to him back in Kurz. It rattled him enough to where Kurz was going to be able to take him in any fight just because he had lost his momentum.
Right.
That's what Corvus says to himself.
Yeah.
I see, but once again, I already have issues with what Corvus tells himself.
Right. You're not sure whether or not he could have taken him is still kind of in question.
To me, that sounds a lot like somebody who's. I honestly think if Corvus was honest, he would have just said, like, I had the shit beat out of me. My equipment wasn't in. I had one working claw. I could barely fly. There's just no way I could win. And instead, he's got to concoct this justification.
Right.
It's not that he just simply couldn't do it. It was this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you just couldn't do it. It's fine.
Although I could see an argument for kind of like him being a bit rattled by,
Oh, I definitely
Yeah.
think so. He wasn't expecting Kurz to show up right in front of him.
Right.
But
And of all people, it to be Kurz. Like if it had been another Primarch, would he have been so shaken by it?
if it had been Angron, he would have had to have run.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. Any way you spin it under those circumstances.
I don't think there's any scenario where he could take. I don't care what other Primarch it was. I don't think he could take two Primarchs.
Right.
Even though Logar was injured, he could still use telekinetics and stuff like that.
He was
Right.
still probably spent from fighting Primarch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had been
Yeah.
fighting other legionnaires.
Yeah, he'd already been like in
So I don't
battle.
think there's any
Right.
scenario where another traitor Primarch shows up and he wins.
Yeah.
So when he has to come up with it, when he's telling himself this big concocted elaborate, like, oh, it's because I looked into his eyes and I saw myself in him. After I've already seen him bullshit himself into some other way of thinking,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I think you just couldn't measure up, and you just, which is, there's no shame in that. Good Christ, on like you.
Right. Right.
It's a practical decision.
Right.
I mean, it would be, and it's not like you punked out like you had been fighting for hours. Like the Isstvan thing took 90 days.
That's crazy.
That's a
Yeah.
long time.
That is
3
a-
months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it does not come across that way in the books. Time does not come across in the books the way that it ends up being. Like the fight between Lionel and Lehman was what? A week long?
Something like that.
Something like that. And in the book, it just, the way they play with time is really neat, I think.
And it's
Yeah.
because I think it's because to them they live so much longer that minutes seem like, or hours seem like minutes, days seem like hours, weeks seem like days,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
That's kind of what I was coming to as well. Is
They
kinda-
don't get tired, so there's not that like measure of time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like, whoo, it's been a long day. I'm going to,
Right.
They don't have that
So
concept. Yeah. You're right. They don't experience time the same way that we do. And so I think that's reflected well in the books.
yeah, but I mean, and it's just Corvus just seems such like an unreliable narrator
Yeah.
of himself. Some of them do, and some of them don't.
Yeah. I think most of them don't, in my opinion. At least most of the ones we've talked about so far that I've looked into don't seem to be too. I'll bet you Vulcan will be a very reliable narrator for some reason.
Yeah, Vulcan probably will. Sanguinius, from what I'm reading
Yeah,
so far,
absolutely.
he
Yeah.
comes off pretty reliable.
That makes sense. Lehman might be just because he's kind of blunt anyway.
I would Lehman's any like kind of predilections or biases that he has, he seems pretty honest about. Like he's like, yeah, I don't like this thing because I don't like him. Big whoop. Want to fight about it? Like, other than the Emperor, I think Logar's pretty reliable.
Yeah.
He recognizes every flaw in himself and in the other Primarchs, and he's honest about it. He's like, I'm no fighter. I'm no this. I'm no that. But I am good at this. It's where but the problem is his one blind spot is like this big giant golden blind spot. It's like the key blind spot, you might say.
Yeah. Although really even his perspective on the Emperor is not objective, but I wouldn't even say that it's really inaccurate either. It's like the Emperor had good reason to lie about the warp, but he was still lied to about it, right?
Yeah, but so the problem is when you see somebody that's capable of doing the mental gymnastics of he says he's not and therefore.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Good point.
That starts getting dicey, Logar. But anyway, he survives Isstvan.
Yep.
And his legion gets whittled down to 1,000, from 100,000 to 1,000.
Yeah.
And he hauls ass back to Terra to beg the Emperor for technology to help him revitalize the Raven Guard.
Yeah. I couldn't believe this stuff when I heard it. The Emperor actually gave him the knowledge he would need to fast track the Astartes process.
Yeah, he gets like a gene laboratory on his ship, doesn't he?
He gets the keys, which means he still has to fight his way to the lab where the Astartes project was created.
Fight his way.
Yes, to prove that
there's security system.
Getting in there.
So, when the Emperor left, he's like, I turned on a security system that wasn't ever like it doesn't shut off. Like it was meant to be anybody that's going in needs to be able to survive all this stuff to prove they're worthy of this.
Right.
And so he gives Corvus like tips. He mentally implants kind of the knowledge to get through to fast track. He's like, you're still going to have to get through it.
Right.
But I'll give you the knowledge of what it all is so you can give you your best shot.
Okay. Which I have a hard time. I can't understand why the Emperor would. I know he was decimated and stuff, but he still had the ability to rebuild his legion, just not as fast as he would have been able to without this. Is that correct?
So yes, you could have done it through the regular recruitment process like they did with the Raven Guard. Yeah. However, it's questionable as to whether or not they would have actually been able to do that because of the heresy.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
So were this just something to happen on the Crusade and the other legions were up and the other 17 or whatever legions were up and functioning?
Yeah.
And all fighting for the Emperor? Sure.
Right.
That happened to the Salamanders.
Okay.
Before Vulcan came along. They were borderline suicidal with like stand your ground. And they massacred themselves a couple of times. And so they were on the brink.
Wow.
But he gives him the technology, he gives him the lab, but unfortunately there are already Alpha Legionnaires infiltrated the Raven Guard. Which leads to the Raptor project. Jerry, you want to talk about the Raptor project?
No, I don't.
Jerry was talking to me at work today. He's like,
sad.
I was reading about the Raptor project. That's sad. I was like, it is sad.
Well, he gets like 2,000 good troops first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, fine. But then the next batch that comes out is like, they start to like grow horns and feathers and stuff out of them.
They start to mutate.
Yeah, they mutate, and they're like strong at the time.
It's almost like the Raven Guard version of the Wolfen.
Okay. What little I read on this, that's what it sounded like to me.
They like sort of don't have their own will, kind of.
No.
Yeah.
And doesn't it get worse over time? Like at first they can kind of fight for their legion, but
so as the mutation takes hold, it's kind of like the Wolfen and the flesh change with the Thousand Suns. They kind of devolve as time goes on.
Yeah.
And so he had to, and the sad thing is a lot of these Raptors would earn honors and stuff because they were strong, they were fast.
Yeah. They were win into battle.
They were loyal.
Yeah.
So, but then as they mutated, they'd have to put them down.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't he make like a promise to like kill all warp created things at some point?
Yeah.
And then like later on, he's like killing his own guys like really reluctantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corvus makes all kinds of stupid oaths.
I know that one wasn't really thought through because he didn't know at the time, but he was
He
they
has to face that he's something from the warp.
right. Yeah.
And he spouts shit like that all the time, I think. Like where he's like, I'm going to do this. And it's like, man, do you even think about that? Do you even think about like what that entails?
I think he recognizes that one as, whether or not you agree, as the one oath that he should have thought through better, that he would like. I can't remember where I got.
Yeah, but the problem is that that doesn't. He didn't really learn anything from that because then he goes off and does other stupid things.
Yeah. But he ends up putting down the mutated Astartes himself.
He does it by his own hand, and I'm sure it took a while.
Yeah.
For a few.
Yeah,
And
even for a Primarch.
Yep, and I would just like to say Sanguinius was doing that for a while without bitching about it. Didn't see him boo-hooing over it.
Well, they're like his like sons, and they're like looking at him like, you're like my dad.
So we're saying,
I love you so much.
Going right
Why
up
are
to
you
him.
choking me to death?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's the
That's
one benefit is that
terrible.
when Sanguinius puts them down there,
They're
they've-
mindless.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
lost themselves.
But it sounds like these guys still recognize him as their father.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Emperor also. I think the Emperor decreed that
They had to be.
they had to go.
Yeah. Which does make sense. It's really sad.
So that keeps the Raven Guard pretty much out of the heresy.
Yeah. And still in pretty low numbers. And hadn't they faced a decimation before? Like they were put in the front lines. Like Horus had commanded them to the front lines prior to the heresy.
Yeah.
And they suffered pretty heavy casualties there too.
Yes. So Horus did that to a couple of them, and he also the ones that he couldn't do that to, he sent them further out.
Okay. So by this time he was orchestrating the heresy.
Yeah, he was
essentially.
trying to thin out his
Okay.
own. He was trying to thin out his
Corvus
enemies.
didn't like him for that because
Correct.
he
Right.
was like using them as frontline troops when they're like, this isn't our specialty.
Right.
Yeah.
And Horus is like, oh, I knew that.
and Corvus had sworn at that point never to fight by Horus's side again.
Mhm.
Yeah, he also didn't particularly care for Horus's method of war anyway, which was that kind of overwhelming firepower.
Right. Whereas Corvus had and that makes sense. His tactics did probably save more lives than a frontal assault typically.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Man, you know what I want books where we get to see the legions fighting alongside one another because there's so many cool pairs that you could do with that.
Oh yeah.
Like, can you imagine a book where it's like Liam and Russ and the Volca Fenrica and the Sons of Horus working together? Because that's just like two groups that just love a frontal bash. Like, fucking hell, what would you do against that?
I couldn't tell you, but I know what I would like to see would be like the Salamanders and like the Raven Guard, like taking on a system together, like the Raven
The
Guard.
two
are going
opposing?
Yeah. Kind of not using their tactics in tandem would be like pretty devastating because then while they're like trying to charge at the Salamanders, they're getting just blown up or eaten away from behind by the
The Imperial Fist would be good for that as well.
Ooh, yeah, yep. The frontal assaulters. I like those kind of tactics.
But that's one of the things that's really great about the Siege of Terra novels is you have the Imperial Fists, the White Scars, and the Blood Angels all fighting together.
Ooh.
So you have like the Imperial Fists who are manning the palace. You have the White Scars who are like running out and hitting things and running back, and then you have the Blood Angels who are like coming in from the top and using their jetpacks and things to like rain down on the enemy. It's a really
Nice.
we could use a couple of books of smaller scale versions of that.
Yeah,
Where
that
you
would
get
be
to
pretty cool.
Get to see these things work in tandem.
That combination of tactics. That would be cool.
But Corvus and the Raven Guard are largely out of the Siege of Terra because they just can't amass the numbers. They harass and harry the supply lines of the traders, and they do what they can, and they do stay in the fight the whole time.
Right.
And one thing I will say about Corvus is dude's got a guilt complex on him a mile wide.
No kidding.
He was so mournful over the loss of his own troops that his body wouldn't heal.
Oh, wow.
He was mentally keeping his body. He wasn't doing it on purpose. It wasn't something that he was just like, but like in mourning, his wounds weren't healing.
He was neglecting his
Yeah.
ability
Wow.
to comfort himself.
And that's interesting because we do kind of, when we feel guilt, we can unconsciously commit like that self not self-harm. That's not the word I'm looking for.
I
but
mean, it kinda-
self-sabotage.
Yeah, self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Self-harm in that it comes from you, even
Right.
though you don't mean to. Like, you can cause your hair to fall out. You can give yourself skin
You're
reactions.
stressed and your immunity goes down.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you can make yourself literally, you can worry yourself sick.
Yep. Absolutely. Plenty of experience with that myself.
People can worry themselves or grieve themselves to death.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
People can die of a broken heart.
Yeah. That creeped me out when I found that out. It's like, oh my God. Oh
It's
no.
kind of romantic though.
It's romantic, but like that's nice in a story. The fact that it could whenever something that should only be in a story starts happening in real life, it creeps me out some.
You know what
It's like,
you know what the first story I ever encountered that had that in it was?
The
what?
Notebook.
Oh, they died holding hands.
They did.
It was sweet.
Fuck Nicholas Sparks. No, it's Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh.
I knew it. Nicholas Sparks ain't got nothing on that book.
No, he
That book will just rip your heart out, wipe its ass with it, and then stuff it back in your chest so you got shit all in the wound cavity. Like, man.
Yeah. Every word that just came out of your mouth is just all simultaneously disturbing and true.
That book is brutal for no reason.
I know.
Like, everybody's like, Old Yeller. You're like, oh, Old Yeller is nothing. It's pittance. You shoot that dog. He's a monster now
Yeah.
Cujo.
compared to a Red Fern Grows.
Oh, man.
But anyway, so he takes this very hard and he adopts the Codex Astartes, which is the really stupid project that Gilliman came up with to make sure that no one legion ever had enough power to launch a rebellion again.
Yeah.
Broke everybody up into chapters, which only further compounded the mess that is the behemoth that is the Imperium.
Right.
Because now you have chapters. So each chapter spawns new chapters.
Okay.
So you have the Legion. When it reaches a certain size, it branches off into a chapter. And when that Legion reaches a certain size again, that branches off into a new chapter.
So like fractals.
Yeah. But each one of those
Yeah.
fractions breaks off into its own fractions, and so on, and so on, and so on. So in the 41st millennium, you have chapters that have no idea what Legion they're from, who they're actually supposed to be answering to. Like, they just know that this is their section of space. They're against Xenos, they're against mutants, they're against heretics. They work for the Emperor. Go.
Whoa. They don't know. Like, there's some that like don't know their lineage.
There's some that nobody knows who their lineage is.
Whoa.
There's a loyalist chapter called the Carcharodons, space sharks.
Ooh.
What?
Because, the Carcharodon is...
Oh.
But
no.
they are... This is so... Everybody says they're from the Raven Guard. Because... But how? What? So...
Sharks?
The features that the Carcharodons have that people say make them related to the Raven Guard are that they have pale skin, black hair, and black eyes. But the Carcharodons are defined by their brutality in combat.
Which is...
So I'm
very-
like, is it possible that maybe they're a loyalist chapter of a traitor legion?
Could be.
Oh, yeah, because that
They
was...
sound more like Night Lords to me.
Yeah, that could very well be Night Lords. You're right, because they share those same features.
And
pale skin, dark
who
hair.
the sires of the Carcharodons are is a big mystery.
Really? Okay.
But everybody's like, they're probably the Raven Guard. I'm like, based on what? They don't act like Raven Guard. They're like, they're just more extreme. I'm like,
I mean, those are Raven Guard features, except for the brutality.
right.
but
yeah.
so are the Night Lords.
Yeah,
The Night
right.
Lords have pale skin, black eyes, black hair, but they also have the brutality. And it's
Right.
much more likely that a loyalist Night Lords would take the Space Sharks
Yeah.
as a name.
And separate themselves too from their predecessor
Right.
in a bigger way, because when you think Night Lord, you don't think shark,
No.
or,
No.
But so
interesting.
a few of the Primarchs didn't like it.
yeah,
Vulcan flat out refused and was able to convince Gilliman to not do this because the salamanders were so decimated. They were decimated beyond even what the Raven Guard were by this point.
wow,
Oh, wow.
that's crazy, because my understanding is that the Raven Guard was like intensely depleted.
Well, the salamanders were smaller than them to start with.
Oh, okay.
They were the salamanders, I believe, were the smallest legion
Wow. Okay.
because they were decimated before the Primarch even.
Because they never retreat. God
No,
damn,
Because
guys.
they don't.
Sometimes you have to run away. I know you. I know they don't. Don't come at me about this. I know better, but I'm just saying.
Right.
Jesus.
But Vulcan managed to tell him, like, if we split into chapters, we're going to be completely worthless.
Yeah.
Now, I believe there are like 2 confirmed Salamander chapters now.
Oh.
Because they're not this, which everybody's hoping that means that they're like, nope, the Salamanders are back at what is now considered to be full strength.
Right.
It used to be 100,000. And also, like, another thing that does is it puts you at very, very bad, like, I'm trying to think of the word. It's not balanced when the traitor legions are still operating under the Legion. They're still...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, the Death Guard still operate at, like, 100,000. So if you're breaking your forces into chapters, but then you have, like, the Word Bearers and the Death Guard who are still operating as... Now, the Night Lords are completely fractured, but you have the Thousand Sons, the Word Bearers, and the Night Lord and the Death Guard, who are all still completely intact, running at 100,000 strength.
Yeah.
Like, what sense does that make?
Yeah, I know. You're kind of like decentralizing your own power.
Just because you're afraid that you'll get stabbed in the back by your own forces again.
Right. But if you're up against this force that's more unified, your decentralized force isn't going to stand as much of a chance.
Not at all.
That. That's
not at all.
Like, I guess I could see where you get that. You don't want like a whole block to just fall off the chain. You'd rather it be a smaller piece if one gets corrupted. It's just a tough situation. Yeah. Too extreme maybe of a night. Yeah.
And another mark, in my opinion, against the Codex Astartes is standardized all your battle plans.
Yeah, you can't do that with these guys.
It's like, okay, so you better hope that the traitor legions never get a hold of one of those, because now they know like what all your responses are.
Right. Well, and it also doesn't work because of how unique each legion is.
Correct.
Like they all have their
that's
own
an ultramarine thing
stuff.
through and through, though.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
The Smurfs are very by the order.
I keep getting does Smurfs get like thrown around for the Ultramarines and the Tau? Because I feel like
ones are Smurfs, ones are blueberries.
Blueberries. Okay. Gotcha. All right. I'm blue dabu dee dabu die.
I call the Ultramarines the Smurfs because Gilliman is Papa Smurf.
Ah, okay.
The Tau don't really have
They don't have a Papa Smurf.
They don't have a Papa Smurf, so they're blueberries.
Nice. Okay.
I haven't learned anything about them yet.
No, the Tau?
The Tau.
No. Yeah.
Space.
It's okay. I don't know much about them either.
Space communists.
Space communists.
They're not. Okay, don't send the hate my way. Don't send it. I know they're not. That's the joke. Boy. So they're
anime space communists. I'll take some of the heat.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
So, yeah, if you have a friend that's like, oh, I like the anime aesthetic, they're the faction that you point them at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, we've talked before about like you just got to find the part of Warhammer that
appeals to the person that you're wanting to
targeting.
Get into it.
Yeah. And you use that to draw them in. So, yeah, what is it? Weeboos? Is that derogatory? Weebs? Yeah. I hope that's not derogatory.
I don't think it is.
Okay. Yeah.
I've heard several self-using weeboo.
Okay.
If people self-identify, it's probably all right.
Yeah. So for all my weeboos out there, the Tau are your people. Apparently.
For the aesthetic.
For the aesthetic, yeah. Okay. I know nothing about the Tau either at this point, but
we'll
I
learn
know
together.
A little. Yeah. We'll learn together.
Oh, they'll have to be not after this next one.
Right.
So we've got...
But we'll put them on the lineup. We've been putting them off mainly because I didn't think you'd be that interested in doing an episode.
Oh,
so
I mean, they're cute.
In the grim dark, they're cute.
They are.
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah, they're cute, and their fans are present.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Hi guys.
Have them.
They're well, I mean, they're not listening to us. They don't actually do things, but they're there.
Okay.
I'm told they're there.
We don't want to leave them out.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So if you are a Tau listener, the only way you're gonna don't give me a comment. One comment don't mean shit. Not about how much you like the Tau. Yeah. We'll do this. We'll do this by their standards. You have to make their video do better than the Eldar.
Oh, yeah.
Because apparently there are no Eldar fans out there.
Yeah, okay. We had. Oh my gosh, when we ran those Eldar episodes, we got
nothing.
So little. We still don't.
Nobody
cares.
And what was funny is all the like videos that I were listening to about the Eldar, all of the content creators were saying the same thing. They're like,
Yeah.
nobody likes Eldar, but you have to cover them. It's like, okay.
So that is what we did, and we just made it through. It's like, not getting a whole lot of views on him, and we're like, but we expected that.
Yep. So
It's
if more people listen to the Tal than did our Eldar episode, I'll start shitting on the Eldar more.
There we go. That
Okay.
sounds good.
Yeah. Weren't we talking about a guy and a thing
Oh,
and a
yeah.
person?
Somebody has something to do with
Feathers.
ravens.
Feathers.
Feathers. That was it.
It was
Yeah.
the Chicken Lord. So
Chicken Lord.
Colonel Sanders was delivered from the Emperor.
Colonel Corvax.
Corvus Sanders.
Corvus. Oh no, help me.
Colonel Corvax.
Can we title the episode that?
Colonel Corvax.
Colonel Corvax. Let me get back to you on that one.
Some Kentucky Fried Raven.
I can't breathe.
Let's talk to their lawyers.
No, ours will be a major.
There we go.
Major. Okay.
Anyway, so
Colonel Corvax.
So Corvus is one of the few that adopt the Codex Astartes without question.
Yeah, he kind of liked the idea, which didn't make much sense to me.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an idiot. But anyway, so he adopts it.
consistently makes terrible decisions.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, I get why he did, because being a smaller legion like that, it would be very easy for you to get in the mindset of any one of these larger legions could go rogue and just ham up on mine, and I wouldn't
okay.
be able to do shit against it.
That makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
I can get it from his point of view. I would never say if I were one of the Primarchs, I'd tell Gilman to go bend himself.
Right.
Because
As far as tactics go, like they don't really rely on like huge numbers.
They
for
don't.
they don't.
Yeah.
their tactics.
Yeah. They don't need
They-
many to do
They
what
don't,
do.
but the ability to be able to put up those numbers if you need to would
Right.
be.
Oh yeah, for sure.
cover more ground that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, their tactics as far as in a battle, they're not relying on numbers. But they have to cover a lot of galaxy.
Mhm.
Yep, and especially if you're talking about a legion on legion war,
Oh,
they
yeah.
would need those numbers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what he does do is when he adopts the Codex Astartes, he goes into seclusion for a year and a day.
The
Yeah.
Raven Spire.
Yep, the Ravenspire, which is the top
Of
building of the.
a dark tower, I
Yep.
think it was called.
Yep, it's the
Yeah.
top tower of the fortress that is the Raven Guard's primary fortress on Deliverance.
Which
Call it like the top of it, the Eerie, like an
yes.
an eagle's nest.
Yep, I saw that too. You're right. The Eerie. Yeah.
Oh,
Irie?
yeah.
Yeah. Is it
Airy.
Airy?
Airy.
Yeah.
Eerie. It's spelled weird, but it's
It is. It's like EA or something like that, or
Like
AE.
EY. Or we could look it up.
We could.
We're not going to. Let us know how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Type that motherfucker out. What's it called? Like phonetically?
Phonetically.
Type that out phonetically in the comments.
Yeah, there we go.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
But he comes out and he shits the bed. He decides that he's going to go after the traitors in the war by himself and abandon his legion and the Imperium.
Oh, yeah.
This is when he adopts the I am vengeance.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am the knight.
Yes.
I am Dark Queen Duck as far as I'm concerned. The Raven's a duck, I tell you.
When there's trouble, you call Corvus. Or not Corvus.
Corvus Corax.
Corvus Corax.
He just takes the ship, and his final words before he plunges into the Eye of Terror is nevermore.
Yep.
Yep.
And he decides to make a pledge that he's going to kill all of the traitor not Astartes, but Primarchs.
And off he goes. Nevermore.
Which is stupid because you can't do that. They'll just reform. They're demon princes, you moron.
Oh, yeah. That's
You've literally
right.
set yourself upon an eternal crusade. Meanwhile,
Wow.
you're robbing the Imperium and your legion of your help.
And one of the few good Primarchs left.
Yeah, it's not like Russ where he's like, I got a thing that could possibly bring back the Emperor. I'm going to go get it.
Yeah.
That's not what this is.
He literally just goes off for vengeance. And that's, yeah. Wow. Just straight up crosses that line. To hell with justice.
Well, in his mind, if you were to ask him, I guarantee he'd say that is justice.
That is true.
So he
I'll
thinks
bet
he's
you.
balancing the scales, but he's kind of
Yeah, he
left
is, but
things
he's
to
doing
get
that
worse.
single dog-minded, like, that's the thing, and I don't care about any of the suffering on the sides.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do the thing.
son of vendetta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he cloaks,
Just took off. He took off by himself. He didn't take any Raven Guard with him or anything.
no.
Wow.
Now,
What's the point?
so where is Corvus now? We've actually had a sighting of him in the warp. That's not the last that we've seen of him.
What? Tell me.
He's shown up in a fortress. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but the word bearers were performing a ritual, and he shows up and just starts massacring them.
Yeah.
There's some questions.
Oh.
He's described as being mist, and then also showing up as a creature with claws, fangs, and feathers.
He got warped.
So maybe. So he starts massacring the word bearers, and Logar feels it
Uh-huh.
and shows up out of his temple, out of his meditation. This is what has gotten Logar kind of motivated.
Okay.
And when he confronts Corvus, the word bearers think it's a demon,
Yeah.
but Logar recognizes it as Corvax, and he actually chides him until Corvax appears in his regular form.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that he's necessarily been warped or gotten influenced by the
Right.
warp,
Yeah.
but what if so he could make people not see him? What if he's developed his powers to now he can alter what people see, not just make himself go invisible?
Oh, so he's enhanced his vision.
Perhaps. Being in the warp has made his ability more powerful. Perhaps he's just gotten more practice on it. He's more willing to use it than he was before.
Right.
So I don't think it's necessarily that he's been mutated by the warp.
Okay. So the fact that he can still appear as normal again. Yeah, I could see that. He's just kind of mastered that ability to affect people's perception.
Yes.
Okay.
He's been enhanced because of the warp, but not by the warp.
Right.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah. That's my sitting theory right now.
Okay.
I hope so. I hope that's the case because we also know that Lehman has been in the warp for a long time, and I'm really not interested in a wolfed Lehman unless it is like he can kind of like a Hulk.
Oh yeah,
Where he can
kind of wolf out, but then come back.
Right. I would be okay with that, giving him almost the traditional werewolf.
Right. Yeah.
I would be okay with that, but I don't want just a wolfed version of Lehman.
Right. Yeah, where it's just straight.
We need to keep and I even hesitate to do these because I do want to kind of keep the aesthetic of the traitor Primarchs being the ones that look monstrous.
Right.
Whereas the loyalist Primarchs may not look monstrous, but they're just as capable of committing monstrous acts.
Well, he dabbled on that with the Raptors, and it didn't go well for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And to be a little meta about it, though, I could see where they might start having them kind of be altered in their appearance for the sake of the models, like new models coming out of the Primarchs. I could see that.
And I don't deny that there's an element of good story that could be told. Like if the loyalist Primarchs start showing back up to this Imperium that's hyper run by the Ecclesiarchy and hyper against mutation.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden the loyalist Primarchs are mutated.
Ooh, that could be juicy.
They'd have to explain that too, because a lot of people don't know about the warp.
Right?
Correct.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, ooh, Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
So if it was in fact that the warp is mutating them, that could provide, as you said, some juicy story. I
Yeah.
just don't know that there's so much other things for them to handle. I just don't know you need this extra layer of drama.
Yeah, definitely story-wise, there's enough going on that you don't necessarily need that. I agree with you there. But yeah. And I just bring up the model thing because it's like, you have to think
more
likely.
at the end of
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
So that's a wrap up for Corvus Corax. Guys, what do you guys think of Corvus as a Primarch? I know I'm a little sour on him, but that's okay. That's okay.
He's complicated.
Yeah.
You're allowed to like him. You can say you like him, fellow.
I just really feel bad for the Raptors. That's what I got out of this. It was just
A lot of tragedy in the Raven Guard.
There is. There really is. I felt pretty bad for him. So my first real exposure to Corvus was that moment of retribution on Isstvan V.
Yeah.
Yep, 5, where he just comes flying in. And no, that wasn't my first impression. It was my second one. The first one was from the Night Haunter and stuff, which it was cool, but it wasn't like...
It wasn't super detailed.
Yeah, right. It wasn't, grabbing enough. It was just a little bit of a confrontation, not a fight, and then off he goes. But it's like, ooh, he's scary and sneaky. That's cool. But boy, him flying out of the sky and just ripping into everybody and demanding the why of it and stuff, that was so endearing to me. I'm a little disappointed to hear about some of his hypocrisies that have come about, but that's okay.
if you get disappointed in hypocrisy, 40K is going to be a rough
Exactly.
ride.
That's exactly right. You know, it's so
Here there
true.
be hypocrites.
Yeah, here there be hypocrites. Before we leave off on him, do you want to go into a little bit of like his personal equipment and stuff like that?
Sure.
Some of that stuff's pretty neat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's got, of course, the lightning claws. I think we mentioned that.
Yep. He's a lightning claw user, just like Conrad. That's yet another thing that they share together.
He also carries a whip.
He does.
I thought that was an interesting detail.
Yeah, it's a power whip. He had it made specifically for him by the Mechanicum. He really liked the idea of using the weapon of the oppressor against the oppressed.
I thought that
oppressor.
might be
makes
why
sense.
he picked it. Yeah, I thought so, because they were whipping their slaves on that planet beforehand. I found details on that. So, yeah, turning the weapon of the oppressor against the oppressor is pretty interesting. I liked that. Of course, he's got those, are they called power wings? He's got wings.
They're
on his
just
suit.
wings, but
Just
they're
wings.
bladed.
Yeah, bladed wings on his suit. So,
His suit was called the Sable Armor, so I imagine it's
Oh.
probably part of that.
Okay. Yeah. And I like that idea. He's just him soaring through things and that was something I would do as a kid. Like when you're playing with your action figures and anything that has wings, it's like, oh, now it's cutting through things.
This
And
wing is doing.
Oh nope,
area
it's
of
called the
effect damage.
Corvidian
Yeah.
Pinions.
what is it?
The Corvidian Pinions.
Pinions.
Oh.
It's a flight pack.
Dangerous as all hell. I wonder if it shoots blades out from it too. I didn't. That's me speculating entirely. It's like they could have done that. So-
Yeah.
Like in a video game with infinite ammo.
right. like shrapnel flying out. Were there any other icon? I know they typically only have like 2 or 3 iconic like
He
weapons
has like
to
those
them.
lightning talons.
Yep,
Yep,
the
the
lightning
lightning-
talons.
yep,
He had
talons.
2 pistols that he used on and off, but they were never really anything notable. I mean,
Terribly
they were
special.
notable, of course. They were Primarch weapons, which means they were made out of the finest materials, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
They
But
were really his go-to. He was an up-close and personal kind of guy.
yeah, which makes sense.
It does. Stealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that about does it for Corvus, at least the part 1 anyway.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some more that looks like it's worth revisiting, and I would love to. I really wish that I had the time and capability to read some of his books before we did this episode. So,
And I'm gonna continue, and there's a few more that I want to read before I, close the door on his character, so to speak.
yeah, but he's got a lot of really cool themes to him, or really interesting themes to him that I really like, that in early influence in his life and how it led to kind of the way that his tactics are and his way of thinking. I find that stuff very interesting. So I'm excited to do more in the future. We have a few other things to cover along the way first.
Absolutely. Jerry,
Yeah.
what about you? Any last thoughts, wraps ups, conclusions?
If you haven't seen what he looks like or what his Legion looks like, I would definitely do like a Google image search because they got some pretty neat armor, I think.
Oh yeah, we'll put up 3 or 4 examples here.
But
yeah,
I don't.
yeah,
Why do you do this?
and not yet. Future Eric's waiting on the edge of his seat.
Why are you like this?
That's right. Oh, not yet. Right here. No, right here. Yeah, that's a nice spot.
Oh, you think you're so funny, don't you?
I agree, future Eric.
Anyway, with that, we'll close up this episode of Cold Lore. I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
And I'm going to DoorDash some KFC.
Fuck. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for joining us on another one, and we'll see you on the next episode, which will be NIDS. Bye.
Adios.